Hey guys, Beezy here, and today I wanted to show you guys the complete set of every Rugby Challenge PlayStation 3 games, including all the variants. So first I'm going to show you guys Rugby Challenge 1. From Australia we had Wallabies Rugby Challenge. One's pretty easy to find if you're in Australia or pretty much anywhere else in the world, guys. Next we had one from New Zealand. Now this is All Blacks Rugby Challenge. This one is a little bit harder to find, guys. However, if you're in this region of the world, you shouldn't have too much trouble finding this one. You can find it pretty cheap. And finally, we've got the European and South African release, which was Jonah Lomu Rugby Challenge. If you're in Australia, this can be a little bit harder to find. However, you can get a shipped copy under $20. All these copies, guys, just say Rugby Challenge on the disc and the manual. They don't specify All Blacks, Wallabies, Jonah Lomu, etc. So that was Rugby Challenge 1, guys. It was 3 releases. Moving on to Rugby Challenge 2. So we had Wallabies again. This is the Lions Tour edition. Rugby Challenge 2. Again, this one's probably the easiest and the cheapest to find, especially if you're in Australia. This one's a little bit harder to find. A little bit more expensive too. We've got the All Blacks Rugby Challenge 2 featuring the Lions Tour. And unless you're in New Zealand, you're probably going to have to import this. And it's a little bit more expensive than the first one. However, it's not too difficult to find. That is the All Blacks Rugby Challenge 2. Moving on, guys. From the UK, Great Britain, we've got Rugby Challenge 2, the Lions Tour edition. This one isn't too expensive, especially if you're in the UK. However, if you are in Australia, it isn't too expensive to import this one. Just something to note, guys. England didn't receive Rugby Challenge 1 as a standard release. And the manual's slightly rarer this one. So that is Rugby Challenge 2, the Lions edition. And finally, released in countries like South Africa and France, we had Jonah Lomu Rugby Challenge 2, Top 14 Pro D2 edition. This is probably the hardest and most expensive Rugby Challenge 2 game to find. You have to import it from a different country with more expensive shipping, guys. So unfortunately, you're going to be looking at like the $30 plus mark for this one. Yeah, so we had 3 Rugby Challenge 1 games, 4 Rugby Challenge 2. Moving on to Rugby Challenge 3. This is the more expensive game. And we actually had 5 variants. So this one is going to be the hardest one to find. This is what a full set looks like. And I'll show you guys the games. So we'll start off with the Australian one. We have Rugby Challenge 3, the Wallabies edition. Again, this one's very common in Australia. It's a little bit more expensive. But you shouldn't have a problem buying this if you're in Australia or importing it from somewhere else around the world. That's Rugby Challenge 3. This next one's pretty difficult to find. I just wanted to give Mark a shout out from South Africa. He helped me track this one down. So this is Rugby Challenge 3, the Springbok edition. Obviously it's from South Africa. This is probably one of the hardest ones to find, and it's very expensive. Unless you know someone in South Africa, you're going to have real trouble finding this one. Next, we've got the England edition. Again, this one isn't too hard to find, being an English release game. You can import this anywhere in the world. It's a little bit more expensive, but Rugby Challenge 3 is a little bit more pricey. So this is the England edition. Now moving on, this next one I'm going to show you is released in France. It is the Jonah Lomo edition. As you can see, the French flag in the background. I was lucky to find a sealed copy, but this one is very hard to find, guys. I didn't know it existed up until recently, so good luck finding this one. I couldn't tell you a price, just because of the scarcity of this release. I think I paid around $30 for my copy. Pretty much all I can tell you. So that's the Jonah Lomo edition. And the one that I just recently acquired thanks to Andrew, so shout out to Andrew. We've got the All Blacks edition, Rugby Challenge 3. This was the last New Zealand release I needed. For me, it became the most difficult to find. However, I believe that's due to Mark helping me with the South African one years ago. So here we have the All Blacks edition of Rugby Challenge 3. Just quickly going to show you guys all the games. Massive stack. I had heaps of fun collecting this set, guys. I love my rugby. I'm almost completed my rugby league set, so I'll be showing you guys that once they arrive. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, I'll see you later. Happy collecting.